Hello, everyone. This is the Faithful Life Podcast. I'm Matt Jacobson of FaithfulMan.com.
And I'm Lisa Jacobson of Club31Women.com. We're so glad you're here with us.
At Faithful Life, we explore what it means to be a biblical Christian in today's world, in our marriage, parenting, church, and culture.
It's real, raw, and relevant.
So let's get started. Hey, everyone. Good to be back with you. Hope you had a great week.
Yes, hello, everybody. This week, we are enjoying our annual family vacation where we all get together for about a week or so. And because we have kids who live across the country and all over the place, it's this special time where we all come together and just enjoy each other's company and do a lot of fun things. And so it's the highlight of my year.
Super looking forward to it. Mine too. Absolutely. But in our discussion today, we're pivoting to the discussion of and the topic of dating. And yeah, right. We've had several episodes on the subject of marriage. We're going to be talking about dating. Some of you have kids that are in those dating years, and some of you will have kids in those dating years. So it's apropos to everybody.
Yeah, either way, even if you feel like, oh, my kids are so young, that's so far off for us, I would encourage you just to consider these topics, these issues, and enjoying the conversation, because I know from experience that you come to that age before you realize it. It happens so fast.
So we're going to be talking about what matters and what's important, what the Bible says, and what the Bible actually doesn't say.
Yes. And if you're looking for a formula, this is the wrong podcast for you, because we don't have all the answers. We just want to have the discussion. We want to talk about those things that we feel are important and the mistakes that we've made along the way, because we have 4 of our kids are older and out of the house and have already gone on. So, and then we still have younger ones at home. So we're kind of in the middle of this journey ourselves, really.
So for a while now, we've wanted to introduce you to our kids. And so today we're going to be able to do that, which is good because our daughter, Cambria Jacobson, is a dating expert.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, right. So she's...
It's good we have one of those.
She's right here. So, hey, Cambria, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Cambria, and I think I'm probably the furthest thing from a dating expert that you can get. So I'm 20. I work in social media marketing. I've worked for Jeremy and Audrey Roloff for about 3 years now, full-time, helping them run their businesses. And I'm the 4th of the 8 Jacobson kids. And I recently just moved from Virginia back to Central Oregon. So currently I'm here in Central Oregon.
Okay. So we want to ask you a few questions about dating if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So for starters...
Does this involve boys?
Definitely.
This is going to be about boys.
So what would you say it's like for a young single Christian woman these days?
My optimistic, positive answer, it's hard. It's really hard.
Okay.
There's a lot of pressure from people. There's a lot of expectations specifically as a single Christian woman that are set on you. And it's really hard because you want to get it right. And it feels like you're set up for failure, essentially.
Okay. Why would you say that? What do you mean by that?
Because there are a lot of formulas that are passed on to you, essentially. Suggestions of it.
Is this going to be about our parenting? Oh, no.
There's a lot of things that you hear, I think, and if you're anything like my parents, if you are a parent, that a lot of messages that were, like I said, were passed on as opposed to, if you just do it this way, you're going to have a great dating relationship, ideally, a perfect marriage. And so you're looking for those steps, I think, as a single Christian woman. And like I said, you're set up for failure because there is no such thing as the formula or the certain steps. Now, there's basic principles, but there are no steps. There's no magic formula.
Well, absolutely.
I checked.
Well, and frankly, one of the things that we would want to emphasize from the very beginning is if you're looking for a formula on the topic of dating in this particular podcast, wow, are you going to be disappointed?
Right.
Because there isn't a formula. And, I suppose in some ways this is something that we would never have said in times past, but I do think it's something that we have probably walked in. And we're going to be talking about that specifically going forward a little bit. People date for all sorts of different reasons. And, some people come to the dating relationship because they just want the benefits.
Okay.
Right? They want to be physically gratified.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think also, though, especially for a woman, but maybe for guys too, I don't know, that you have this longing for romance and excitement. And those years between I don't know, even starting as early as 14 all the way into your 20s, there's just something in you that just goes out. I want something bigger than this provincial life. You just want,
Sure.
you know what I'm saying? You want something sweeping. And I think it's a natural desire.
Yeah, of course, it's a natural, and it's a good desire. And, the world, our flesh and the enemy have a way of taking the natural good things that God put in us and distorting them and tarnishing them and making them something so much less than what God has planned for us. So we will definitely be looking at some of the elements and aspects of that as we go forward. So we want to start off by just asking the broad question, should Christian singles, Christian young people, even date? All right? And I think we would all agree they should, right?
Well, I don't know all, because I know when I was young and single, so many years ago, but I used to tell people literally, I said, I don't want to date. I just want to get married. And they would laugh at me, but I was quite serious about it. I did want to avoid the whole dating scene, and I didn't see how you could win by dating.
Well, I think that phrase dating scene kind of says it all, right? Because what we're not talking about, when we talk about dating, we're not talking about the dating scene, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about something very different, and we're talking about dating for the purpose of pursuing marriage, right?
Yes.
Right. So we absolutely would encourage people to date, but dating with a purpose, dating with something in mind. You're actually seeking out God's plan for you through a godly dating relationship. So, Cambria, what would you say, just relative to your experience as a young woman, what would you say regarding the issue of dating young?
I think that there definitely are exceptions to the rule, but I think dating in high school, for instance, is a very unwise idea for multiple reasons. I think you don't know, again, largely speaking, you don't know who you are yet. You're getting things figured out. Even from, I'd say, almost a biological standpoint, there's a lot of chemical imbalance and hormonal imbalance and things you're working through and that you've never had to deal with ever in your life before. So I think it's better to give yourself some time and wait till you're a little bit older. So I'm not a fan of the idea of dating in high school. I think it's incredibly unwise. Not that you can't have a beautiful relationship that comes from that, but can be very incredibly unwise.
Sure. I think we have even examples in our own church fellowship, Kyler and Kayla. Was Kayla in high school?
I think so. I think they were young.
Or just at the very end of high school. And they were young, got married. And there are wonderful examples of that. But by and large, the idea of dating when you're in high school, for all of the reasons you mentioned, is a generally bad idea. Because why are we encouraging, as parents, two young people to intersect and intertwine their lives together in a way that isn't leading anywhere necessarily, and often, frankly, leading them to a wrong perspective of what a healthy relationship looks like. The interesting thing about the Christian world is there's this massive spectrum of what is viewed as good, what's viewed as okay. And so you've got some parents, on the extreme left, if you will, that are saying, hey, anything goes, just let the kids date, let them. And then you've got the extreme on the other side of, no, we must, control this process, to the nth degree. And we'd like to believe that we're somewhere in the middle of all of that. But the idea of dating young, can you really be dating with a purpose when you're dating in high school?
Yeah, and rather than having it be a, thou shalt not date focus, I think it's really good to encourage your teenagers. And Cambria, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this, but encourage them to be focusing on what they should be doing, which is growing as a person and maturing it themselves. And also, just because you, let's just say as a family, decide that you're not going to be dating in those high school years, those young teen years, you can still have lots of good conversations and be open about, oh, you find that person interesting. Oh, you find him attractive. What is it about that person that draws you? And keep the conversation open rather than
pretending that attraction's not going to be there, that interest isn't going to be there. Because I think when you do that, you're encouraging them to act out. If you're ignoring the fact that there will be attraction, there will be interest, it's not that you just suddenly wake up one day and go, oh, I suddenly have feelings now at 20 or however old you are.
Mm-hmm. Hey everybody, we just wanted to break away for a quick minute to tell you about a new book recently released by Revell Publishing. This book is called Breathe Again. You need to get that title in your head, Breathe Again. It's by author Nikki Hardy, and it's about the circumstance of her life that so many of us can share. At some point in life, something is going to be dropped in your lap that is absolutely devastating. Is it going to destroy you? What are you going to do with it?
I was immediately just thought about our own story, and even the title, that Breathe Again, and that feeling of not being able to breathe. When our daughter Avonlea, our 5th child, was born, and we found out at birth that she had suffered a massive stroke in utero before she was even born.
So who plans for that? I mean, it was totally devastating. It really was. Now, Avonlea is 19 years old today, so God has revealed his glory in his way in her life. But that's really what this book is all about. It's about thriving instead of just surviving. So many people, when faced with these circumstances that seem to come from nowhere, just out of the blue, they're just surviving. They're just hanging on by their fingernails. And Nikki's message is, you can do so much more than just hang on. You can thrive. You don't have to just survive.
Yeah, it's encouraging, and it's full of practical steps of what to do when you're in that situation. So even if you yourself are maybe not in a life circumstance, you might be sometime down the road.
And we can just about count on that, can't we?
Right. And or you know people you love around you who are going through these kinds of things. And it's just such an encouragement.
Absolutely. So, title of the book, Breathe Again. Nikki Hardy is the author. It's by Revell, just released. Go check it out. You'll be glad you did.
Yeah, I think as a mom, that was my tendency 10 years ago or 5 years ago, whenever it was, to be just like, oh, we're not going to talk about that, honey, because you're too young. And right, when did you say that? And and I definitely have changed my perspective on that. And I do want to have open conversation about these kinds of topics. What's on your heart? What's on your mind? Rather than shutting it down.
Yeah, it's just such a normal, natural part of who we are as human beings. And it should be recognized, celebrated, and embraced. It just needs to be in its proper place. You know, in the book, I think it's the Song of Songs, it says, do not awaken love before its time. And that's such a wise principle from the Word of God relative to encouraging young people to enter into a relationship that can lead to those loving romantic feelings before they're really ready to pursue marriage.
And I would honestly say, in discussions with my friends now that we're a little bit older, I've had multiple discussions with my friends about how their mothers specifically, but also their fathers, talk to them about dating, about relationships, and about how much detail they shared with them. And I hear that there was a lot of education that did not go on because the parents were afraid that talking about it would encourage even things like talking about sex, and it would basically cause those things to happen or encourage that kind of mindset. And I hear all of my friends kind of have this longing for, I wish they would have had a more open conversations with my parents about this, and it wouldn't have encouraged me towards that. If anything, would have encouraged me towards purity.
Okay, Cambria, do you want to talk about your relationship with the young
That all being the case, I did, in fact, date someone, I would say, about high school age, towards the last, I'd recently graduated from high school, but I was high school age. And I
was,
would...
second year in college? Something like that?
First year in college.
First year in college.
Yeah. So, but he also was in college young. So the relationship did not work out. And I think both of you guys encouraged me not to pursue that, absolutely. But you also gave me the freedom to make my own choice. And I'm glad I made my own choice because I feel like I learned a lot. But I would say that what I learned is that it's not a good idea to date young, if that makes sense. But I appreciate, honestly, the fact that you did entrust me to make this decision. And if anything, I would say it was a stronger encouragement or incentive for me to stay pure with this other person and to have a pretty clear mindset about him and where we were at.
Yeah, we didn't take the top-down approach with you for sure. And again, we're not in favor of this choice. Viewed a relationship with him as a mistake, but ultimately we did let it happen.
Well, I think it's a bit of a fine line for parents to strike that healthy balance between protecting and also giving freedom. And a lot of that depends on the age, it depends on the situation, and it even depends on the child, kind of where they're at. And that's another reason why we can't do formulas. We can't say, oh, well, at 18, you're allowed to date, or at, whichever age or situation you think is fine. You really are going to have to be spirit-led in that conversation, in those decisions.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I would say as Christian kids today, it's very hard to connect with the opposite sex in this day and age of social media, for instance. A huge amount of your life is online. So it's easy to kind of escape being vulnerable and having real relationships with people because you don't need to. And there can be, even again, in the day and age of social media, there can be a lot of pressure just going to coffee, just doing one little one-on-one thing with someone. People instantly are aware of it. If anything gets posted online, people are instantly aware of it and watching what you do and putting kind of pressure, asking questions. And on the one hand, it is nice to have people interested in your dating life. It's exciting to have people asking questions and being like, oh, you and so, is there anything going on there? Like, it's fun. It is fun. And there is, I think, a lot of validation that goes through that, which is why I think social media is as popular as it is. But when it comes to dating specifically, I think it's really unhealthy to be putting that online. I think it's too easy for there to be miscommunications and too much openness in that respect. So honestly, unless you're in a relationship with someone, and even if you are, I would strongly caution against putting things online and putting things on social media. Keep it private, and that only your friends, your community, and your family know. I don't mean completely keep it private from everyone.
Yeah, you mean like as in personal as opposed to public.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I think that social media aspect puts so much pressure on the young couple we got to figure this out. We got to answer the questions. Or in some cases, I can think of a situation that I know of recently where the couple stayed together longer than they would have. It would seem, because they didn't want to face the public statements and the explanations of why we broke up and why it didn't work out. And that's not how it used to be. That was just more of only a few close friends and family would know the inside story, but now everybody wants to know all the deets,
And on the flip side of that as well, it can be hard if things don't work out, you don't receive the same support or enthusiasm or notice when things don't work out. People aren't there anymore asking questions or going, hey, maybe this was really hard for you that you guys aren't hanging out anymore, or this was a difficult situation. There's definitely not that same support. It's only when, I would say, at the beginning stages when people get really excited and interested.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, Cambria, how does your faith, you are a Christian and a godly young woman, and you identify with the Lord, and you're public about that, and not shy at all about your faith. How does your faith intersect with your approach to men in this area of dating and looking for God's plan for you going forward?
I would say my faith completely defines my entire view of men, and specifically in dating relationships. If you are dating, are you looking for marriage? What's your purpose? Like, if you're approaching me, what's your purpose in being interested in me? Are you looking to date? Why are you dating in the first place if you're not pursuing marriage? Where I think if I wasn't a Christian or didn't have as strong a faith as I do, that wouldn't be as important. But because I'm a Christian, that's incredibly important to me.
Well, okay, but you're not married. And
This is true.
And you're not currently in a serious dating relationship.
This is
pursuing marriage. Right, exactly. Do you want to reveal something?
Yeah. Well, guys.
All right. So how should you be spending your time as a Christian young person who isn't in a serious dating relationship, is serious about the Lord, and is serious about marriage? Right? How should you be spending your time?
I feel super strongly about this because I have several girlfriends who've gotten in relationships and then gotten married and didn't use their single time well. And by that, I think it's super important to be a healthy single. And by healthy single, I mean not only content with your status as a single person, but also you are actively seeking to grow as a person. Because I think you have this beautiful, rich time in your life that you probably are never going to have again, to completely invest in yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a really, let me look at myself and see all the ways where I'm selfish, where I am controlling, where I am unkind, every little flaw you have, and really hone in on that. And not only hone in on the flaws and things that you need to work on yourself, but also use it as an opportunity to reach out to people in your community to be a helpful active member of community in a way, in a capacity that you probably are never going to have a chance to once you're in a relationship and then you get married. I mean, you still can serve others in the community, but I think using your single time really well and making sure it's a rich, fulfilling time is incredibly important. And not just waiting around for someone to come into your life and make it wonderful and interesting. I know as a woman, I want someone who has interests and passions that I can participate in and that maybe aren't the same as mine, but that can still interest me. And I want to bring something special to the table, not just a need for the other person.
No, that's so true. And I think even on a practical level, there's so many things you can do during those single years. And I didn't get married till I was almost 27. So I had plenty of single years.
I got 7 years.
Exactly. To work on all kinds of practical skills, just even things in running a home, or like you said, reaching out to people, to ministering to others. They're studying books, reading, all kinds of things that you can do that will help make you a fuller person, so that when that time comes that you are equipped and ready to go.
Well, babe, that is certainly something that I loved about you. All right. So when we first met, we started talking about things you've done, you traveled, where you've been, what you've studied, what you pursued, ideas, thoughts that you had. You actually worked hard on personal development. All right. And so we were both busy adults and pursuing our lives that were full, rich, and meaningful as singles. So we were doing that, and it was something that I loved about you. So I love that encouragement that you're giving to young women, just to go and live a full, rich, wonderful life, Cambria, because that is absolutely true in terms of just developing yourself, and you're becoming a more interesting person as you do that. One of the things you said that I really love, and that we have absolutely observed in you as a Christian young woman, and that is, you said, using these years for serving others, or at least you were talking about that, and we've watched you do that. We've watched you take meals to new mothers who are at home with their newborns, and various other things. I think you even took chicken soup to somebody who was sick one time, and you've definitely walked in that, and that is just a beautiful life of service that you've given, and we've watched it unfold, and it's been really wonderful.
And if I may as well, in my experience, it ironically makes you more attractive as a person when I think some of my friends have been concerned, well, if I just keep pursuing all these things, the guy's going to feel like there's no time for him in my life, and then maybe he won't be interested in me because he'll think, oh, her life's already full. But I have been told firsthand that it's attractive when you're happy being single, that you have a full, rich life. And it's not only attractive, but it's really healthy. Your life can be full and can be rich and can be meaningful in the years God has for you prior to marriage. And it can be absolutely amazing. You can embrace lots of group activities, especially when you're younger, and seek community and choose to have fun and, again, really beautiful experiences.
Oh, that's great. So, Cam, what advice would you give as a daughter to the parents that would be listening to us right now, as far as dating goes? What advice would you give?
Don't know that I'm in a place to give any real advice, but honestly, I would say that even if you think your child is mature and wise and well balanced, and even if they have perfectly applicable skills and seem ready for marriage, that does not mean that they are ready for the depth of a serious relationship. And I would say marriage prep is a process. I think I used to feel like, okay, I'm going to get to this point where I have a certain amount of skills and a certain amount of wisdom and maturity, and then I'm going to be ready for a relationship and I'm going to be ready for marriage. And I'm learning that I am constantly, by the grace of God, constantly growing and finding out new things I need to work on, and that I'm never going to be at a place where I'm suddenly completed. Yeah, like a completed little package ready for marriage. So yeah, marriage prep is a process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that it's easy to think, like, to write out your own script of what you think is going to work out. I'm going to accomplish this, and I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to meet him, and then I'm going to step into that role. And in my experience, that's not the way God works. He has his own story for you, and it's a unique story. And it might be like Kyler and Kayla, and they were, I don't know, what were they, 18 or 19?
Something like that, yeah.
And it might be like you and I, hon, and we were 27 and 31, 32.
All the singles are out there going, no.
Can we go with the first option?
You don't want to do it like they did.
Right, but that was definitely something that God convicted me of. Stop writing the script and let me write out your story.
Yeah, see, in our case, I think God had a lot of refining to do in you so that
Oh,
the marriage
definitely.
would go well.
And that's why I had to wait so long.
Is that why I had to hang out? Okay. Actually, it was probably me, for sure me. So,
all right, Cam, another question. What advice would you give to any single women that would be listening to us today?
I would say that guarding your heart doesn't mean that you can't be open. And I think specifically Christian women hear this a lot. Just guard your heart. Guard your heart. Don't give yourself away. And while that's important, I think I took that message specifically as a young woman and thought, okay, well, that means I just can't be open. I can't put myself out there. And that can cause a lot of problems as well, because you're really closing yourself off, essentially. And also, if a date doesn't go well, I think we're very hesitant to go on dates and, like I said, to put ourselves out there, because in my mind as well, if a date doesn't go well, I assume that's because there's something wrong with me. It didn't go well because I did something wrong. As opposed to going, you know what? I went on a date. I tried to put myself out there. I'm still guarding my heart. Didn't work out, and that's okay.
Okay, so would you say one date and you should be able to decide if is that fair, or?
That's I'd say definitely a personality and age issue. I feel like, in my experience, I can go out on one date with someone and know if I'm seriously interested or not. But I know other people who have gone out on several dates, other people who go, I don't need to go on a date with this person to know I'm not interested or to know that I am interested. So definitely no formula there. Absolutely.
I mean, I hated your dad when I first met him.
like I said, God had some refining to do. So, hey guys, I didn't deserve it. And if you want to know how much I didn't deserve it, just go and listen to the podcast.
Two sides. Good. It's good.
I think it's the second episode. It's our story.
It is kind of funny. It is. But okay, so what about all the potential out there, Cambria?
Ooh.
Everybody has potential.
Yes. Okay. I hear a lot, and maybe you do too if you're a single Christian woman. Look for the potential in a guy, basically, or pointing to, hey, there's all this potential. And I would say, honestly, hard, solid line, do not date a guy based on potential. It's important to see if he has room to grow, or is he actively trying to grow? Is he open to growing? That's great. But do not date a guy based on who he may potentially be. Because at the end of the day, you have to date the person who's right in front of you, not who you think they may develop or kind of become.
So you're not saying that you could have room to grow. You're not saying it's be perfect now.
I mean, I'm not saying no to perfection if it's there, but yes.
And of course, all of this literally presupposes that we're talking about somebody who loves the Lord, serious about their walk with God, and is pursuing God, and is not just pursuing a selfish life of their own choosing. And that's really important. And frankly, I think for the purposes of this discussion, we probably just assumed that going forward, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know that that's something that you would be looking for, certainly, Cambria, and we would advise anybody that is interested in pursuing a dating relationship for the purpose of marriage, right? If you're pursuing a dating relationship, then really make an assessment on the level and seriousness of this person's commitment to the Lord and commitment to the Word of God. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to give lip service to the Lord. Hey, not that kind of lip service. But,
oh, okay. Wait a second.
No, but
interesting choice of phrase.
that are willing to say that they follow the Lord. But there's a big difference, as we like to define on this podcast. There's a big difference between somebody who calls themselves a believer and somebody who is committed to being a biblical Christian. Those are two very different things. So that is a foundational presupposition for this discussion. We might have mentioned it earlier in the podcast.
And I think not just even your own assessment of that person, but even how they're known in their community, how they're known in their family. Because when people have asked how it was that you and I were able to decide so quickly that we did want to get married and got married fairly soon after that. And part of the explanation, one, is we have our own unique story. So I always want to add that. But as well, you're right, I didn't have a long time to observe you in all the different situations, but you had such a reputation with the people you worked with, the people who have known you for years, your own family. And their description of you went a long way to helping me feel confident in who you were as a believer. And so I think that in that setting helped a lot too. So it wasn't just my own personal evaluation of you.
Absolutely. And if I can jump in here as well and say something, I would say Vienna, one of my sisters, recently just told me this as well. And she said, don't date someone who's good with you, but not good with your friends and family. And that's another mistake I see a lot of people making. In fact, it's a mistake that I'm inclined to make. Because if I get along with someone really well, honestly, seeing them interact with my friends and my family helps me figure out how I feel so much. It becomes an entirely easy process in that respect, because you can see how are they interacting, how are they being respectful, are they being kind? All these qualities you're looking for are a lot more apparent when they're not just one-on-one with you. So don't date someone who's good with you but not good with other people, because if they're good with you and not good with other people, then they're not good.
All right. So any last thoughts for a young woman who might be thinking about a dating relationship?
I would say, not only, you mentioned just a little bit ago as well that your story is unique. I would say if you're a woman, you're looking, if you look at the Bible, every story that God writes and every story in the Bible is entirely unique and intricate and beautiful and incredible. And allowing God to write a beautiful, unique, incredible, and intricate love story for you, taking a step back almost as well and allowing God to have that. Basically, turn the pen over to him and don't try to manipulate your love story, if you will, so it'll look like someone else's. Allow God to do something absolutely extraordinary in your love life. And as well, if you're looking for someone, again, just to reiterate, if you're looking for someone but feel you're not okay, settled, or centered as a single, I would say you're not ready. Stop looking and focus on your own spiritual and personal development.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking there's probably some guys out there or some parents of young men out there. What are some of what is some advice that you would offer for the guys from your perspective?
Well, I was recently reading this book called Wild at Heart by John Eldredge, and he brought up this concept that I thought was absolutely amazing. And essentially, he's saying, and I agree with, that women do not want to be the adventure. I think a lot of guys think of women as the adventure, as the ultimate goal. Not that we don't want to be pursued, but we want you to come along and sweep us up on the adventure. We don't want you to come and be like, okay, well, once you have me, what is there left to the relationship? Where's the excitement? Where's the fun? If I am the end goal, and if that's your highest standard, then I don't see it going. It's hard for me to see potential in the relationship. Where if you come to me and go, here's my adventure, here's the journey I'm on, you would make an amazing teammate. Let's go conquer this together. That's inspiring. It's exciting. It makes you more interesting. And absolutely, yeah, John Eldredge puts it really well. And
we would highly recommend that book for everybody. It's a fantastic book called Wild at Heart, John Eldredge.
Beautiful, yes.
Absolutely.
And I would also say one other thing as far as advice for the guys. Be genuinely interested in the woman you're pursuing. And women can tell if you're not genuinely interested, or if you're pursuing her because she kind of fits into an ideal or mold that you think you're supposed to be looking for. Allow there to be room for chemistry. Don't be just interested in the moment to get what you desire, but interested actually in her unique, wonderful, as a unique, wonderful, interesting person who has thoughts, ideas, hopes, and dreams. Try and find some common ground. Be interested in her little passions. Pursue her as something interesting, not just as an object or someone who's going to fit into a role or a box that you need her to, essentially.
Okay, so speaking of desires, we haven't really touched on this yet.
Oh dear, here we go.
But what about the physical aspect of a dating relationship?
Well, a dating relationship is not where you should be studying anatomy using the Braille system.
Great.
Okay. So, all right, Cambria. So there it is. So how much of yourself are you willing to give? How far should you go? Is that really the discussion to be had?
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up because there's very specifics what God says you're not supposed to do and what you are supposed to. No, just kidding. Of course, there is no checklist. And something, this is really good, guys. I got in the portion of the Bible that's just little known. Yeah, just for me. No, something you guys have said repeatedly about my walk of faith, but that I think is applicable to dating is that Christianity and your faith specifically isn't about how close you can get to the line. It should be, if your heart's in the right place, how far you can get away from the line. So not how close can you push the boundaries. Is it fine to make out with someone who's not your boyfriend, technically speaking? Those aren't the questions that you should be asking. You should be asking, how can I honor this other person? Because at the end of the day, if the person you're dating, if you don't marry them, they are someone else's future spouse. And I recently just had a conversation with someone about this. We were talking about our friendship and if we wanted to just be friends or if we wanted to move it to a different capacity. And essentially we said we're just going to be friends. And what came in that conversation, though, as well, was a really healthy going, okay, well, if we're just friends right now and if we aren't pursuing something serious, then we are someone else's future spouse. And having that mindset in any dating relationship, I think, can be really healthy. Because and I have many friends who have gotten engaged as well, thought they were going to marry the person and they didn't. But they thought they were, so they gave away parts of themselves. And I would also strongly encourage any women or men out here listening, I've never regretted withholding myself from someone, physically speaking. And a lot of that is saying no to your flesh. It's saying no to, if you find yourself in a position where it'd be easy to push the boundaries, absolutely just drawing a solid line and saying no. And I've never absolutely regretted that. But I would also say, my parents, in my perspective, to some extent, I would say I'm slightly less conservative. It's not that I'm not here, toting my parents' beliefs because, this is what my parents believe. This is why I believe the way I do. I do have a slightly different perspective on some things, but at the same time, our hearts are in the same place of we're all here to honor God and to make sure that's the priority.
Well, and we really believe that is important in this discussion because if we're asking the question, well, how far can we go and not sin? Then our focus really is on how much can I gratify myself and still be okay with God? That's really kind of what we're saying. And it's certainly what we tried to teach you growing up. But that's definitely indicative of a focus and a heart in the wrong place. The question is this, how close can I get to God's plan for my life? And how can I honor and respect this other person? And how can I honor and respect somebody else's spouse before I meet my own? And so, anyway.
And we recognize that the topic of purity it's a big topic, and it is one we're going to cover in another episode, another time, more thoroughly. But we obviously can't really talk about dating without at least mentioning that as an important part of those dating decisions.
And we should hasten to say that. Have you met anybody in your life that doesn't have regrets?
No, not that I can think of.
Oh, of course we all do. And so at some level. And so if that's you, we're going to talk about that too, because God does not want us walking around as his people, burdened with shame of past mistakes. But that's not the scope of this discussion. In fact, I think we're coming to the end. So we'll hit that up in another episode. But listen, we hope you've enjoyed the discussion about dating. And again, it's a general discussion about biblical principles, not a formula, not a math equation. And so God bless you as you seek to honor him with your own lives, if you're single and pursuing a dating relationship, or as you train up your children to know and love the Lord and to posture themselves for the best life that God intends for them according to his plan. So anyway, all right. So, hey, we're going to wrap it up here, but we've got today's takeaways. We always end up with today's takeaways. So let's just hit those. There's no formula here, only godly biblical principles.
All right. And guard your heart, but don't close your heart. Something Cambria mentioned. I thought that was a really good point.
Don't date on potential. Date the person who is in front of you, if that's the person God's calling you to date.
And keep an open conversation with your young people, with your teens about dating and romantic interests. Even if you decide that's not the right time to date, make sure you're talking about these things.
Date with purpose. And another way to say that is don't take what isn't yours and don't give what belongs to your spouse, to someone else.
And use your single years to grow as a person. Make the most of this time. It might not be what you would want or would choose for yourself, but this is what God has chosen for you. So make the most of it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for being with us today. We really appreciate you joining us and being part of this discussion.
Remember, our God is our rock and our Redeemer.
He knows what your week holds. He even knows if it holds a date. All right? He is right there, and he knows exactly what you're facing.
He loves you and is for you.
So this week, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you.